Fellas, this one, 47 seconds, Derek, to go. And it looked like, man, that it looked like they were going to be able to finally get one. And even if they just won by 1 point, make it happen. Derek, what happened down that final 47 seconds, man?
Yeah. So no Kyle tonight. He has a train to catch, so he is on his way over to that. You're stuck with me.
We love it.
It was one of the most inexplicable losses that I've seen since I don't want to say it, but since that shot that Rich knows what I'm talking about because he was up there with me. I have not seen a playoff. I've seen bad playoff losses, certainly last year against Celtics, but this one was just completely inexplicable. And there's going to be a lot of attention paid, obviously, to the way it ended, to Nick Nurse trying to call a timeout, whether he was trying to get it, whether he should have gotten it, to Jalen Brunson. I thought, obviously, fouling Tyrese Maxey on the inbounds pass. I think that's probably the part that I think is more egregious than the timeout. I'm sure we'll get to that. But, man, Kyle Lowry missing 2 big free throws down a stretch and so many points they left on the board in the first quarter. Like, there were just wide open corner threes they were missing. Oubre, I think, blew 2 layups. Tobias blew a couple of layups. Joel Embiid went like 2 for 6 from the line in the first quarter. There were so many points that they put on the board. And a lot of times with these close games, I just go back to the beginning. This should not have been a close game. I think this was certainly one of them. The Sixers outplayed them for pretty much the entire night outside of a stretch there to start that fourth quarter. And they're coming away with an 0-2 deficit that's going to be real tough to come back from. And it's a really weird series because I feel like Sixers have had the best player and the second best player in the series pretty comfortably, and yet they're in an 0-2 deficit. But just every single thing that could go wrong seems like it has up here in New York.
Derek, let's talk about one of those players because we have been podcasting here after watching that ending, whatever that was. So I've seen some tweets of kind of Joel's locker room scrum, but I assume you were there. What was he saying? What was the mood like? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly pretty much like these refs are ridiculous, and those calls were ridiculous. And he highlighted those the fouls that should have been called on Maxey more so than the timeout, and then a bit of confidence. He feels like they have outplayed them both games and they're going to win the series. And we will see. I think there's reasons like, yeah, they have outplayed them for portions of these 2 games. They certainly have put themselves in a chance to win this game. But the reality is they're down 0-2, and you can be the better team from here on out. You still have to find a way to win 4 out of 5, and that's tough to do against a quality opponent, which New York is. I think the old saying that the series doesn't start until a road team wins a game, I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, because if you're the lower seeded team and you want to try to steal a series, winning one of these 2 on the road is key to doing so. They're in a real tough spot. But Joel Embiid came out and he projected a bit of confidence. He certainly stood up for his teammate in Maxey in trying to get that foul call, and feels like the team deserved better.
Real quick on Embiid, I guess, I don't know if he talked about this, but I guess the reason that's hard to believe that from him is that for a bunch of reasons, obviously Sixers related, but the main one is that he looked like he was really moving slow at the end of that game.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think even more so than being gassed, I think he just doesn't change direction all that well right now. I think you see that at times in the rebounding battle as well. I don't think it's just being tired or effort. I think he also is struggling to elevate, struggling to change direction quickly. And I think that's impacting both in pick and roll coverage and in rebounding. And this was another game where, in the first half, I think they only gave up 2 offensive rebounds in the first half.
Yep.
New York got a bunch of them down the stretch, including some very key killer ones. Look, Embiid's not at 100%. I'm not sure he's at 75% right now. That is a very serious issue for sure.
So, Derek, we were talking before about how the bench has been absolutely destroyed by the Knicks bench in this game. Maybe we pontificated. Maybe Buddy Hield isn't a 16-game player. Maybe he's an 82-game player. I need something positive to hold on to. Does something change with the bench coming game 3? Do we get a campaign? Do we get somebody else to give this team some energy in that second unit?
Yeah, look, I have always been a little skeptical of whether or not you can put Tyrese Maxey next to campaign and have that hold up, especially in the playoffs. I think New York with their physicality, I don't think that's necessarily a great matchup to bust that out with either, but I do think you need a little bit of anybody else to give you something off the dribble, because right now, if Tyrese Maxey or Joel Embiid aren't creating it, then it's not getting created. There are just no good shots being created outside of those 2. I do think that I like to give Tobias Harris some credit here for this game. I thought his defense in the fourth quarter was phenomenal. I thought Kelly Oubre had some moments defensively as well and has been really good throughout the entire series defensively. But you need more contributions from not just your bench, but like you need more contributions from Kelly Oubre. Like you need him to have a big game or two. And he had some really makeable shots early on in the game, like I said earlier, that he has to convert. They just need more from their role players pretty much up and down the roster outside of Lowry there in the first game. And Lowry had his moments down a stretch as well, but just more consistency. I mean, I'd probably throw Campaign out there just to see. I do think that makes what they're trying to do with Brunson a little bit difficult, but at this point, you're getting to the die another way portion of the postseason.
And even with that, just kind of going back to the Embiid piece there, Derek, as we were watching it here during the watch along, where it was so noticeable of how he could not move out there on the floor, offensively not really involved, a bit of a decoy because he was actually setting up in the corner if he wasn't setting a screen and handing off the basketball to someone else. I had the idea of asking the guys of, hey, should you, because he is at least capable of moving for those final 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes actually, look to Paul Reed just because you were getting nothing from Joel Embiid basically on either end.
Yeah, you weren't getting much from Paul Reed protecting the rim either earlier in the game. They were attacking him pretty hard. No, I like towards the end of the game, I think you've still got to keep him in there, even if he is struggling physically. No, I mean, Nick Nurse I don't think he would ever do that.
What else we got? How about this bozo complaint they're putting? Got anything else on that?
Which bozo complaint are we?
They're formal
talking about
to the league, the grievance.
I actually haven't seen the grievance. Did that come out in the last couple of minutes here? A formal grievance?
They're planning to file a grievance with the league.
Yeah, that makes sense. I certainly thought that was in the plans. I just didn't know if that. Okay. Look, in terms of the timeout, I think and Nick Nurse sort of like joked in a complaining sort of way of like, what do I need to run out on the court? If Tom Thibodeau needed a timeout, he would have been at center court right in that ref's face. Yeah, if you want a timeout, I think you got to run out on the court and call a timeout. And I haven't had a chance to really go back and look at it. He was clearly at various points trying to call a timeout before inbounding the ball. It looked like he was maybe second guessing himself a little bit. Again, I have to go back and sort of rewatch it. And then he clearly tried to call a timeout after the ball was inbounds. But at some point you worry about, are they going to give Maxey possession of that ball? If he wanted a timeout, I think he needed to be more forceful. And I think the refs also need to see that. I think they need to, you have to be looking right at him because teams frequently call a timeout in that spot. But yeah, Nick, I think you got to run out there at center court. And if you really want that timeout, make sure they give it to you. It's just a real shitty way to lose a game. It's a real shitty way to lose a game. But again, I feel like I have to go back and rewatch it because I've seen some people say he was clearly calling a timeout. I see some people say he looked like he was second guessing himself and pulling back on the timeout on the inbounds pass. I haven't had a chance to really go back and get a great look at it. But look, they're not going to change the outcome of the game. You're just going to complain about it.
I know. And that's why, like, on the one hand, I agree with them because I do think there are some things that they can actually be mad about during that final sequence because none of it went their way. On the other hand, it's like, I don't want to hear about it,
Inbound a fucking ball. Like, come on. Like, how does this always seem like it happens to them? How does and look, I actually, like I said, I actually think the bigger complaint is Brunson grabbing on Maxey and grabbing his jersey and preventing him from running. I think that is I'm very curious to see what the 2-minute warning or the last 2 minutes.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's
the last 2-minute report says
these officiating crews, they don't call, like, they let some stuff go, but they really let the tug of the jersey go. Yeah. They just don't care about that. That's like the most blatant, obvious call in basketball.
If I was the Sixers, that's the one that would annoy me even more than the timeout.
Yeah.
Look, I also thought Kyle Lowry could have called timeout on the inbound once he really couldn't get a good angle to throw it to.
I was stunned they didn't. They had nothing going. I was very surprised that there wasn't a timeout.
Yeah, I thought he at least could have called the timeout first and prevent that since they had one more left and Maxey laying on the floor, all of that.
We all silly like the mayor.